Welcome to the fascinating world of Nemathelminthes, commonly known as roundworms. Today, we will explore their unique biology in detail. We will uncover everything from their simple yet highly effective body design to the mathematical secrets behind their survival and reproduction. Let us dive into the microscopic world of these incredible creatures. To begin our journey, let us visualize what a nematode actually looks like. Imagine a thick, sturdy garden hose, and right down the middle of it, you thread a second, much thinner hose. This simple tube-within-a-tube design is the absolute hallmark of Nemathelminthes. Unlike earthworms that have little rings or segments all over their bodies, these worms are completely smooth and cylindrical, much like a piece of cooked spaghetti. You might not see them often, but they are incredibly adaptable, living everywhere around you, in the soil, in the water, and sometimes even inside plants and animals as parasites. Now that we know what they look like on the outside, let us look at their biological classification and how they develop. Nematodes are bilaterally symmetrical. This means if you cut them right down the middle from head to tail, the left and right sides are perfect mirror images of each other. Furthermore, they are triploblastic animals. This means their bodies develop from 3 primary embryonic cell layers during their early growth: the ectoderm on the outside, the mesoderm in the middle, and the endoderm on the inside. This cellular foundation dictates their entire anatomy. Building on their cellular structure, nematodes possess some highly distinct anatomical features that make them unique. The most defining characteristic is the presence of a pseudocoelom, which is a false body cavity that is not entirely lined by mesoderm tissue. To protect themselves in harsh environments, such as the highly acidic digestive tracts of their hosts, they are covered by a tough, flexible, and non-living outer layer called a cuticle. Furthermore, they only possess longitudinal muscles in their body wall. Because they lack circular muscles, they cannot crawl smoothly. Instead, they move by thrashing wildly from side to side. Let us visualize these anatomical features clearly with a cross-sectional diagram. Starting from the very outside, you can see the tough, protective cuticle forming the outermost boundary. Just inside that layer is the epidermis, followed immediately by the longitudinal muscle layer. The large, prominent empty space you see is the pseudocoelom, the false body cavity we just discussed. Finally, right in the center lies the intestine, which is derived from the endoderm. This diagram perfectly illustrates their highly efficient tube-within-a-tube body plan. Having understood their anatomy, you might wonder why these tiny, smooth worms matter to our daily lives. In nature, free-living nematodes are the unsung heroes of our planet's ecosystems. They are absolutely critical in the soil, where they recycle nutrients and help plants grow. Without them, agricultural systems would collapse. On the flip side, many nematodes are notorious parasites, such as the human roundworm Ascaris, causing severe diseases. By studying their unique biology, scientists can develop targeted medicines like anti-helminthic drugs to cure these debilitating infections without harming the human host. This brings us to a fascinating biological limitation regarding how these creatures breathe. Nemathelminthes do not have a heart, blood vessels, or a respiratory system. To survive, they must rely entirely on simple diffusion to move life-saving oxygen into their bodies and push waste gases out. For this diffusion to be fast enough to keep the animal alive, the worm must have a massive amount of skin surface area compared to its total internal volume. Their thread-like shape is not an evolutionary accident. It is a strict mathematical requirement for their survival in any environment. To understand this biological limitation mathematically, we can model the worm's body as a perfect geometric cylinder. The critical metric here is the surface area to volume ratio, represented by the capital letter R. The formula simplifies beautifully to R equals 2 divided by R, where R is the radius of the worm's body. Notice carefully how this relationship works. As the radius variable increases, the overall ratio drops drastically. Physically, this means a thicker worm has much less relative skin area available for oxygen transfer, and it would quickly suffocate. They must remain thin to survive. Let us see this formula in action with a concrete example to build our understanding. Imagine a normal, thin nematode, which we will call worm A, living in the soil with a tiny radius of 0.1 millimeters. We want to calculate its surface area to volume ratio to see if it can survive. We substitute 0.1 into the denominator of our equation. Dividing the number 2 by 0.1 gives us a final ratio of 20 inverse millimeters. This is a very high ratio, providing plenty of skin area to absorb oxygen for its tiny internal volume. Now, let us compare that successful worm to a mutant, unusually thick worm, which we will call worm B, with a much larger radius of 2.0 millimeters. Using the exact same equation, we substitute 2.0 for the radius. 2 divided by 2 gives us a resulting ratio of exactly 1 inverse millimeter. This ratio is 20 times smaller than that of worm A. Physically, this means worm B has very little skin area relative to its size. It simply cannot absorb oxygen fast enough to support its massive internal volume, and it would quickly die. Now that we have used this formula and seen its impact, let us understand exactly where it comes from by deriving it step by step. We start by modeling the worm's body as a simple geometric cylinder. The lateral surface area, represented by S, dictates the skin available for diffusion. This is calculated as 2 times pi times the radius times the length, h. The total internal volume, represented by V, is the area of the circular cross-section, pi times r squared, multiplied by the length, h. These two equations form the foundation of our proof. Continuing our derivation, we set up the ratio R as the surface area S divided by the volume V. We substitute our previous expressions to get 2 pi r h divided by pi r squared h. Notice what happens next in the algebra. The constant pi cancels out, one radius, r, cancels out, and most importantly, the length h completely cancels out of the equation. We are left with the final simplified result. R equals 2 divided by r. This mathematically proves a profound biological fact. The length of the worm does not affect its ability to breathe at all. Moving from their physical shape to their life cycle, let us look at how parasitic nematodes manage to survive and spread. Inside a host body, they face a highly hostile environment filled with digestive acids and immune responses. To guarantee the continuation of their species, they invest massive amounts of energy into reproduction. They produce an astronomical number of eggs every single day. This exponential egg production ensures that at least a few offspring will survive the dangerous journey out of the current host and successfully infect a brand new host. We can calculate the sheer scale of this reproductive capability using a simple multiplication formula. The total number of eggs produced over time, represented by capital T, is equal to E times N times D. Let us break down these symbols. E is the daily egg production per single worm, which is a biological constant for the species. N represents the number of female worms actively reproducing inside the host. Finally, D represents the number of days we are observing the infection. If any of these variables increase, the total egg count explodes exponentially. Let us apply this reproductive formula to a real-world scenario involving the human roundworm, Ascaris. We are given that a single female lays approximately 200,000 eggs per day. If a patient is infected with 5 female worms, we want to calculate the total eggs released over 30 days. We substitute our values into the equation, 200,000 for E, 5 for N, and 30 for D. Multiplying the daily rate by 5 worms gives 1 million eggs produced every single day. Finally, multiplying that by 30 days gives a staggering final answer of 30 million eggs. This massive investment perfectly illustrates how they ensure their survival. To wrap up our lecture, let us review the key takeaways from today. Nemathelminthes are defined by their unique tube-within-a-tube body plan, featuring a protective cuticle and a false body cavity called a pseudocoelom. We also learned that their thin, thread-like shape is a strict mathematical necessity to maintain the high surface area to volume ratio required for simple diffusion. Whether they are enriching our soils or acting as prolific parasites, their simple biological design makes them incredibly successful.